You're listening to Let's Talk About Fatherlessness with host Sean Teis, where we talk about leading fatherless families to the Heavenly Father.
Hey, I'm Sean Teis. Welcome back to Let's Talk About Fatherlessness. Excited about our guest today. I have Trey Burton with us today. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Excited to have you. We've kind of distantly, I've known of you for a long time. I was the youth pastor in Venice, Florida, at Colonial Baptist Church. You were going to Venice High School, I believe, around that time, and or maybe you had just graduated or something like that. And just excited to be able to talk to you more about your story. So tell us just real quick about yourself.
Well, currently I live in Tampa, Florida. I got 3 kids. I've been married for just over 10 years, and yeah, man, just been busy with kids and running around and sports and school and all those types of things. So grew up down in Venice, Florida. Went to, I guess elementary, middle school, and high school down there in one of the best cities in the great state of Florida. And yeah, man, just loved it and enjoyed having you down there. And thanks for taking care of my grandma when she was down there.
Yeah, we loved your grandma. She was awesome. She played the piano at the church.
For years, played the piano for years. Every church she went to, that's what she did. She sang every once in a while, but she was guaranteed to be on that piano.
Yeah, she was always had a smile on her face. That's what I remember about her. So now you played some football, right? Let's just go ahead and address that. You played some football. Will you tell us about your football career? We know something called the Philly Special. That was something that happened. The Gators, There was a game with the Gators, I think, with 6 or 7 touchdowns. Which
6,
one was it?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I graduated high school in 2010, and my first year at Florida, I graduated early, so I got to Florida just as it turned to 2010, and played 4 years there. So 2014, I left and was undrafted free agent to the Philadelphia Eagles for 4 years, and then signed with Chicago and played there for 2 years, and then played with Indy for 1 year. I guess my last year would have been 21, I believe, so 2 years ago. So I've played in the NFL for 7 years, and yeah, had Philly Special. That was when we won the Super Bowl with the Birds, and then the other one you mentioned was 6 touchdowns. It's a Florida record for 6 touchdowns in the game as a freshman.
Yeah, that's awesome. And some crazy things happened while you were at the Philadelphia. Before we jump into talking about fatherlessness, there was some revival that went on there, right? I remember seeing things about people getting baptized in a hotel pool or something like that. Can you tell about that a little bit? Is that something you share?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was pretty special. I don't know if it's ever really happened in the magnitude that it did happen. It was really cool to see the way that God placed certain individuals, specifically like, having your head coach as a believer, and then offensive coordinator as a believer, and the starting quarterback's a believer, and the backup quarterback's a believer. And so like the most important positions on each team, or on offense and defense side of the ball, for the most part were, guys who were on fire for the Lord. And it wasn't like anything that we tried to do. It was honestly all just like spirit led, and just started in a Bible study, and then we started doing our own Bible studies, in the mornings every single day. And it was just really cool. Bunch of guys just saying yes, to the direction that they felt like the Lord was pulling them and calling them to go. And there was a lot of positive faith interactions, throughout those, I guess, 2 or 3 years when we were in Philadelphia, just because a bunch of people just saying yeah to what the Lord wanted them to do.
That's so awesome. And I followed your story a little bit through the different things you've posted. I saw you even shared about your son getting baptized on Twitter and different things like that. And it's so wonderful how you're carrying that on. Now, just going back to your story, you grew up. Would you just share about your childhood and even touching on the issue of fatherlessness?
Yeah, I grew up single parent home. My mom I have 2 younger brothers. One's 11 months younger, and then one's 6 years younger than I am. So all 3 of us, for the most part, my mom remarried to my youngest brother's dad for 2 or 3 years, in between. So I guess it wasn't like completely fatherless for the whole entire time. But yeah, just grew up, in a I would imagine it's probably a typical fatherless home, with not much direction. Mom tries to do as well as she can, to make sure that there's food on the table and everybody's, on the straight and narrow. But we were really fortunate to have a ton of help, whether it was from her parents, moved. Every time we moved, they were within, 10, 15-minute drive of our house. They, would cook dinner every once in a while, would bring us lunches for school, those types of things. And I'm glad just really placed some really cool and timely and important pieces of people in our lives during those times, of all 3 of us growing up together.
Yeah, and I remember being introduced kind of to you, not personally, but through a distance from your grandma. I came to the church. This is back in like 2000. I'd say 2009. I wrote the rough cut of this book, and I gave it out to a bunch of the kids that were at the church, and I was sharing on fatherlessness. We started the ministry in 2008, and then this was the first thing that we really came out with. And I think your grandma said, I have grandsons that could use that. And I think she took this book, and I think she gave it to you. And then I followed up with you a few years later. You said, I used it. Can you tell about that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely read through it. I don't remember much of it, no offense, but I do remember the most important part was like the part that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And like at the very end, it just goes through the statistics, of like the number of men who are in jail, the percentage, is really high. I don't know exactly, you'd know way better than I would, but I would imagine it's probably like in the 80% range of people who go to jail or who are in jail come from a fatherless home. Same with, abortion, women who abort their children, and education, all these important factors for these kids' lives. And like I said, I don't remember the exact specific percentage of it, but one thing I'll never forget at the very end of it said, "Don't just be another statistic." And like I took that with me, and I even like not just about the fatherless deal, but like every opportunity I had in life, I didn't just want to be another statistic for what could possibly happen or what typically happens in those scenarios. And so yeah, I'll never forget that. I mean, I took that to heart for sure. And obviously, like you're reading the book, I don't want to go to jail, and I know the odds are against my favor, just with the percentages. But yeah, just that don't be another statistic always and always will, stick with me and some of the ways I make, some of the decisions I make, and some of the choices that happen.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because that was some of my drive too. And even to this day, I didn't want to turn out like my dad did, and I didn't want to do to my kids what my dad did to me, with abandon us and walk away. And so that's why we started this ministry too, is to help others overcome that. So I appreciate you saying that, because that is definitely something. That's 85% of youth in prisons grew up in fatherless homes. And then another one's 80% of rapists motivated with displaced anger come from fatherless homes. There's a lot of anger there that fatherless individuals struggle with. Did you struggle with any anger things yourself?
Yeah, I think mine was more like uncertainty, like not necessarily knowing why I'm in the situation that I was in. Maybe loneliness, could be another word to throw out there. I don't necessarily think I was really angry. I think partially if I was angry, football played a factor into that, and so I would imagine like, you have to have some type of aggression from that sense. But I don't know if I've experienced, the I hate this or I hate you. Like I've never been that type of person. I've always been very like laid back and kind of chill and like letting things happen in front, and very like mindful and thoughtful of, certain things. But I would definitely like, you're just so confused, especially when you're in elementary school or even younger than that, seeing all the other dads and parents around, and just trying to figure out like, where is my dad? Why would my dad not want to be there? And I guess it even gets more confusing when you have kids, now I got 3 kids, and I'm like, I can't even imagine, not being there for them. It's not even really an option. So, but no, I was really thankful, man, for the route that I had to go. Like, I don't think I would be anywhere of the man that I am today, or the father or the husband that I am today, if I, had not necessarily like an easy path, but an easier path, with reliable, parents from that standpoint.
Now, your grandparents, let's touch on that for a minute. How did they impact your life? I mean, you said about meals and things. How else did they, with your grandma and grandfather?
Yeah, I think for everybody, every kid growing up, every adult that's close to you in your life leaves some type of mark, whether it's good or bad. I'm a big believer in that. Not necessarily just because someone's a good guy doesn't mean he's going to be a good dad, or someone's a good person that he's going to be, he's going to give you the right advice or right decision. So like they helped me a ton. They helped all 3 of my brother, well, all 3 of us a ton. Just, I would say for one instance, like faith, from just like seeing their faith and seeing like how committed and devoted they were to going to church, what was it? Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday, I guess is what you guys did at Colonial. And like, I would always think like, man, that's crazy. They're spending so much freaking time at church. Like, why would anybody ever want to go to church that many times and those many days? But then also just seeing like my grandfather's consistency when they were in Bradenton, he would drive the bus and pick the kids up, in the neighborhoods that their parents didn't want to come. And he would make it fun for the kid, and give them candy and stuff like that, so that they'd want to come back on the bus and go to church. And church was more of like a fun thing, but just, how important it is to have kids in church, from an early age, or else, they don't go back when they get a little older. So I think like their consistency was awesome. And just their faith, was was something that I'll never forget. And that's definitely something that has like a lasting impression on my life.
Yeah. And you went to, was it First Baptist on the island in
We
Venice?
did. Yeah.
How did that church impact your life too? I know you were pretty dedicated there, right?
Yeah, the church was awesome. I'm a huge fan of Pastor Tom. I think he does a phenomenal job. I would say the biggest problem with First Baptist is everything in Venice is old in the sense of like age wise, so like there's not as many fun things for kids and youth, to do there.
Yeah.
But Pastor Tom has been a rock. He's always been a guy that's been involved in all of our lives. I would say at the time there was a guy named Rodney Ring, and he was like the youth minister or youth pastor, whatever we like to call it. And I think he had by far the biggest impacts from a faith standpoint on my life, and just how he was able to pour into me and those types of things. But First Baptist of Venice is great, man. I try to go back, whenever I'm back in town, and Tom does a great job.
That's awesome. I know Rodney. That's really cool that you said that about him. Now, I used to remember when you were playing with the Gators. I don't know if you did it so much whenever you were professional. Maybe you did, but you used to say early in the morning, time to make the donuts. Or you used to tweet that out or share that on Facebook or whatever. Now, tell us about your work ethic. How did you get such a drive to work so hard? I mean, because a lot of times kids that grow up without a dad, they don't have that drive. They don't have that ability. Did somebody teach you that, or is it something you just learned? Or
man, my grandpa would crush us, dude. Every Saturday, bro, it killed me. I would get so angry at him, man. Every Saturday, you wash the cars. Okay, whoever's at the house, doesn't matter if they're relatives or not. You're washing the cars, and if it's literally like a spot less than 2 inches, an inch spot that we missed, all three of us were washing the cars together. Nope, do it all over again. So we had to wash the whole entire car. And so obviously it doesn't take too many Saturdays in a row to realize that all right, I'm not screwing around. Like I'm gonna make sure I get this done and knocked out pretty fast. But then also I knew, from an early age I was pretty good at sports, and I didn't want, like I said, to be a statistic. I wanted to be a guy, that saw everything through. I was always big on first impression is really important, but then also if I'm gonna play football and say I'm not actually playing on the field, I'm not good enough to play, I'm not just gonna quit. I'm gonna work on myself and work on my game myself to the point where I know I can get out in the field and play. And so I was always the type of guy that I was good, but I was never the best. And maybe that was probably because at certain times, you grow more, you grow bigger than certain people, and you don't have all your motor function skills as well as all the other kids might have in your class. But I just wanted to put my best out there. I didn't want to have any regrets ever. And whatever happened after that is kind of what happened.
Yeah, and I know your grandfather, he had passed away eventually. Yeah. Did anybody else become your mentor after that? Did you have coaches or anybody that invested in you during that time?
No. Well, Rodney was definitely the number one from a spiritual standpoint. I've always had great men in my life, not necessarily Christians, every single one of them, but I think the biggest thing by far with kids that don't have a dad are men that are consistent. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the best. Doesn't necessarily mean you're, the best person in the world, the smartest person, but just someone that I can consistently count on to be there. If I do need something, if I do need to talk to somebody, if I do have a problem, just consistency. And so Rodney, when I got to high school, probably my sophomore, junior, senior year, every Wednesday throughout the school year, we would go to First Watch on the island. And it's not First Watch anymore, but it's a diner, basically a little, small little breakfast spot. And we would just, go through the word, and whether it's a chapter a day or whether he had something, he wanted to share on his heart, but he kind of taught me, what is a Christian, what do Christians believe? And then how do I, continue to walk out my faith, because I did commit my life early on to Christ, but a lot of it, as you're young, is more about your parents' faith and your parents' religion or whatever you would like to call it. And so I wanted to have my own relationship with the Lord, and so that was one thing my grandparents did great was every Sunday we're at church, but it didn't necessarily feel like it was my own relationship sometimes. And so Rodney did a phenomenal job of pouring into me. I've always had great coaches, phenomenal coaches, guys that I could really grow with, and taught me a lot, good and bad, and so I think that's from a fatherless kid, the best thing you can do is take good and bad, and realizing there's good and bad between everybody, and kind of pull and make up your mind on what you want to kind of live your life after.
Yeah. Now, that helped you keep grounded whenever you went professional and you had success. Did that help you, having those roots? Did that really help you with that, or?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of one of the stories I tell people all the time, specifically when you talk about tithing. Like tithing is really hard at first, like really, really hard, right? Like, how am I going to do this? How can I afford this? But then I did that in college when I got first married my junior year in college, so my wife and I didn't have any money. And then we get to the NFL and now we have a crap ton of money. And you would think it'd be harder to tithe, but it wasn't, because we already had those foundational aspects in place. And it was guaranteed, like, boom, first 10 gone. Don't even count it. So like, yeah, it's like same with the roots with, Rodney, and that my grandfather taught me. Like, it was kind of hard to stray. Like, I had to try to stray from those roots, instead of it naturally happening.
Now, when you were playing at UF, I remember there being Urban Meyer exited. He brought you in right after Tim Tebow. What was that like? Was that hard to navigate through? Did you struggle with that? Where you had was it Muschamp came in? What was that like for you? Was it a struggle?
Yeah, it's actually funny because like that was one of the first times that I felt that like abandonment that I had felt with my dad. Because Urban head coach like recruited me, had a great relationship, still have an unbelievable relationship with him. I don't think it was necessarily the fact that he left. I think it was the fact that he went somewhere else, like within like 6 months later or however long it was like, man, like, why does this happen? Like, why did like important men in my life? Because now I'm out of high school now. I don't have, my coaches anymore. I didn't have my brother Clay. I didn't have Rodney. I didn't have any of that, so I'm in a new territory by myself. And then boom, this dude who's supposed to be the guy, leaves again. And so it kind of felt the abandonment, the loneliness, all over again. But then, I ended up having a great relationship with Muschamp. And so, you kind of just move on and go from there.
Now, you mentioned Clay and being the oldest, you're the oldest child. Did that impact you at all? Because I know that sometimes that being the oldest and when you don't have a dad present, sometimes that affects you. Did that impact you whenever you were growing up, or did you not really?
Yeah. I mean, well, not having a dad impacts everybody, for one. Yeah. But then the fact, whether it's good or bad, but then the fact that like I was kind of the one that everybody would turn to when stuff hit the fan, or like, hey, what are we gonna do? Because my mom wasn't necessarily always the most stable person, during our time growing up, and so like it was always, hey Trey, what are we doing, or how are we gonna do this, or what's the deal with all this, and so at the time, whatever the situation, good or bad, doesn't matter. But it's helped me a lot now, as I've gotten older. Like, I'm very like blunt and I'm very straightforward. And like I said, I think about things like you ask me something, I'm going to think about it for a second and try to give you the best answer, after that logically.
Now, what would you say to somebody that's listening to this that is currently growing up fatherless? Just what would you tell them? If you had a minute with them or 2 minutes, what would you say, or a couple minutes? Just what would you say to somebody that is going through right now? Maybe they're in their teen years or early college years. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot based on the conversation and those type of things, but I would always just hammer in the fact of like, that you don't have to be another statistic. Here are the statistics. I mean, obviously, you don't want to go to jail. You don't want to have bad grades. You don't want to do, this and that. So how do we proactively make the right choices, to go down the path that you want to go on, and like let them know that you have to make your own choices. Like no one else can make them for you, and your choices have consequences, whether they're good choices or bad choices. There's going to be, a counter effect to it. And so just kind of help them, down that way, and tell them to get connected some way, shape or form to somebody that they can trust, and, have someone they can talk to.
Now in the NFL, they have, I've seen they have like different people that they were former players or they get assigned to help players out. Do they have anything I know there's a lot of guys in the NFL that grew up in a fatherless home. They grew up in different situations. What was that like being in that locker room or different locker rooms you're in? For example, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was a Steelers fan growing up. Antonio Brown, he kind of went off the deep end or whatever happened there, but he grew up fatherless. He had a unique situation story. He got money, things happened. Anything about that where you saw in the locker room where if they would have had some mentors or things like that would have helped them on their journey?
Well, you only get as much help as you want. So like,
yeah, it's true.
You don't want help. You can sit here and yell at me till you're blue in the face. This is what I need to do. But if I don't think something's wrong or I don't want any help, then I'm not going to listen to you. That's why I think it's really important for like cool people, like people that have maybe like a celebrity status, to come back and show people like, no, this is not the way to do things. Like it's actually cool to do the right thing, and not if you listen to some of this crap music and stuff that they have going on right now, like everything is counter culture, and I'm cool. I'm really cool, like going against the grain. Like I understand that, like to some division at some point, like that needs to happen. But like going to jail, there's nothing cool about that. Like those not being there for your own child, like not really much cool, about addiction, drugs, all that. That's not really cool. So like, I really applaud the people that, are cool, that are a celebrity, and they try to act right. And like I said, not everybody's perfect, and not everybody's gonna do the right thing every single time. But like, the more good you can do, the better it is for the younger generation.
So did anybody mentor you in the NFL? Was there anybody, did they assign? I know like they kind of guide different players with money and stuff like that. Do they have kind of a mentorship there?
Yeah, the NFL is just a whole nother animal. There was a guy, his name's Chris Maragos, who was he's actually a father of three, like I was when I first got into the league. He was actually an undrafted guy, like I was when I got into the league. And he had just signed. He was a special teams player, like one of the best special teams players in the NFL. And he was just, open heart, open mind, like just like a guy that with any questions I had from, being a father, how do I navigate the NFL, to, taxes and, how to tackle somebody. Like he literally had every aspect, dialed in. And so he was definitely a huge help for my family and myself, when I got to the league. But no, they, like I said, they can appoint somebody for you as much as they want, but if you don't show up to the meetings, and they'll fine you a little bit, but if you don't want to do it, then it's not, it doesn't really matter.
Now you mentioned about being a dad and a husband. One of the questions that we get with our ministry is people say, well, I've never had a dad, so how do I be a dad? How do I be a good dad? How has that worked for you? What resources did you have? What things did you do to, like me personally, I've pulled from a bunch of different people. I've learned from different individuals, the things that I don't want to be as a dad, the things I do want to be as a dad. Any things that you would tell other people, like, hey, this is how, I was able to overcome fatherlessness and be a good dad myself.
Yeah. That's actually a great question that people ask. First thing I would say is, just because you don't have a dad doesn't give you an excuse to be a bad dad, or to not be a dad, or to not, take care of the responsibility. Like you have responsibilities that, need to be taken care of and need to be handled, that you created, not someone else created. So like it's your own problem, like in a good problem or bad problem, whatever situation you want to call it, it's your own responsibility. So like, that's not an excuse for you not to be there for your children. But for me, I would say like, I just kind of curated it throughout the relationships I had. I pulled some good things that my mom did, and I pushed away some bad things, and I tried to work on some bad things that I knew that were generational. Same with my dad. Like I knew he wasn't ever there. I didn't really know him that much at all, really, like at all. But like, I want to make sure that generational curse isn't passed on to my children, and then for them to not pass on to their children. But I don't know, it's hard, man. Like, how it is. Each kid is so unique, and I love them so much that like I want to do everything I can to make sure I'm the best dad, possible to them. And so I've actually showed, for me, it's been actually like a different technique compared to what I grew up with. Like I actually like love on them so much that when I am hard, which I am hard a lot often with them, like, cause I'm very blunt, and like my wife's like, you can't talk to your daughters like that. And I'm like, no, like I'm going to tell them as it is, but they know that I love them so much. And like, I'll hug them, cuddle them, kiss them, tickle them, like whatever, 90% of the time, but that, I'm gonna be honest with them and tell them the truth, So I've just kind of pulled and saw other people, other kids that I grew up with. I was at other kids' houses all the time, and especially because sports, you travel a lot, and my mom couldn't make every single game, and so just picked and choose what I liked. And it's weird because like sometimes it pops up, like, oh, I didn't like when I did this, or when I this was done to me, so like don't do that to your son, And so just unique. It's unique for each kid, but it's also something that grew as I continued to get older as a dad.
So what's going on with Trey Burton now? You're in the NFL. You're a free agent now. Is that what's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm done though. I'm basically done for the most part. Yeah, I was done about 2 years ago.
Yeah. So what any plans? And then I know that I've seen you maybe speak at some churches or different things like that. Any plans for ministry or coaching, or what are you looking at now?
No plans for ministry right now. We're on a couple boards. We're, doing supplemental income things. My wife's a realtor, so it's kind of her time to put in some work from the finance standpoint. And so I'm just being a dad, man, just trying to figure out what I want to do next, what I want to get into. But I'm not in any rush, at the moment to hop into anything, but just trying to see it all out. Been enjoying going to my kids' sporting events and, being there and helping, wherever I can. And I've been so go for 20 plus years in ball that I haven't had much time off, so it's been kind of fun to relax and kind of enjoy my family, enjoy my wife. And I always joke like I had to reintroduce myself to her when I retired, because we weren't around often. I was always gone and, playing and traveling and those type of things. So it's been fun to, actually, get up on a Tuesday morning and go for, 2-hour walk with her and just spend time with her. So it's been good.
That's awesome. I love that perspective of it. I was actually at an event in December as a ministries like ours, different leaders for ministries, and Ben Roethlisberger was there.
Cool.
And I've been a fan of his for a little bit, and I was able to sit down or stand there and talk to him a little bit. And he was saying that he just has been taking the time, just enjoying retirement, spending time with his kids. And so I think it's a common trend for guys that are family oriented, that they want to just spend some time with their family now because you've been working so hard for so many years. So I think it's really cool that you're doing that. And I think that's inspiring. It really is. And even if you're a guy that didn't play in the NFL, I want to encourage you, spend time with your kids, take that weekend off, spend time playing with them or at nighttime after work, spend time with them. That's such a great advice. We get so many people that contact our ministry and they say, well, I had a dad growing up, but he wasn't there. And so just encouraging people that are listening to this, if you're like that, be involved, change it around, be involved in your kids' lives on the weeknights, during the weekend, encourage them, be involved in their life to help them as they're going through that. Now we got to wrap up here in just a little bit, but just want to give you an opportunity to talk about anything else that you've seen in the trends of fatherlessness with being in the NFL, with other players, anything else that you've seen that you just want to share?
Well, I kind of want to go back to what you were just talking about, like about dads being there for their kids. Like it's funny you say that because I was we were at football or maybe baseball, and like one of the coaches came up and was like, "Man, thanks for being here." And I was like, "My son's practicing." He's like, "Dude, you have no clue like how many dads don't come to their sporting events." And I'm like, "Wow," that kind of broke my heart, at the time. Like, and I understand like people are busy, but like the time I get to go spend and throw, 100 balls to my son in the batting cage, like those are some of the best times that we've had. And he asks me all the time, like, and I know he enjoys it. Like the time we go and spend on the weekend where it might just be him and I, or I intentionally, once a month have a date night with each one of my kids, whether we go to Cheesecake Factory or whether we go get ice cream, like whatever, but they need to have their own individual time. And I think that's, extremely important to have their own relationship. Like when I ask my baby a question and my oldest answers, like, no, like that's not your responsibility. It's, I want the baby to talk and be able to talk for herself. So like, there's a lot of things that we've seen that we've implemented, with our kids, but I think it's super important for that, specifically dads. Like obviously moms, are there and they're the rock for the most of families, but like dads to be there, be present. Don't just sit down on your phone. Don't be the dad that comes home and sits down in his chair every single night and, watches CNN or Fox News or whatever sporting event. Like if you're gonna do that, like invite your child, to be there and like teach them the sport, teach them what's going on. But I think we do need to spend a lot more intentional time with our children because they crave that. That's something that they want and they need, and it helps with their development at the time.
That's so good, man. I thank you for sharing that. That's such great information to inspire dads because it's so challenging, isn't it, to be a dad? I mean, but to be creative and saying, I love how you said you spend, once a month you go on a date with your kids, and it's just so simple times too, like going to the batting cage. It's such a simple thing, but
30 minutes,
taking time to do that.
30 minutes. Your arm might be sore the next day, but dude, get out there and throw the ball, play catch. Like there's so many kids now that don't even know how to play catch. Well, football, baseball, whatever it is. Like, man, go spend some time with your child. It doesn't have to be, every single day, man, but they're going to want to do it every single day when they experience and see how much fun it is. And it doesn't have to be sports, go code, go to a coding class with your child. Like, there's so many cool things that you're able to do, a bounce house, like whatever it is, man, just go spend time with your child. And I guarantee you, they're going to want to do that, every single day for the rest of the month, until you tell them like, I can't do it every day. I got to work. But I just think it's crucial. And it's so important.
That's so good. Now, this is coming from the heart of not having, your birth father there, probably from when you were younger. Just real quick, I just want to ask you, with your birth father, did you ever have a relationship with him? Did it ever happen, or did you try, or did he try, or? So
my dad left when I was like 2 weeks old. And this is the story that I got from my mom. So I never really asked him like, what's going on? Like, why'd you leave? He left when I was like 2 weeks old. And then he came back when I was he tried to come back when I was like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. And I want to say he was around for maybe 6 months. And so like every Wednesday, my brother and I, because my brother Clay and I have the same dad, my brother and Clay and I would go see him at his apartment after school. We'd have dinner with him and then he'd bring us back. And one of the Wednesdays we went, like there was nobody in the apartment. Like everything was gone, like cleaned out. And we were like, what the heck? And my mom was like, I don't know, this and that. And so that was Wednesday. On Saturday, my brother and I go to the gym. We're playing basketball at the YMCA, and he's in there working out, like pumping iron. And like we see him through the glass, like he's standing there watching us play basketball, and then disappeared. Never saw him again after that. So I was probably like 10, 11, 12. And I know for sure I've seen him at sporting events, like in the stands in the distance, like specifically when I was in high school, because you can see the people, in the stands way better than you can when you're in college and NFL. But I'm sure he's been around, and we hear stories that he's been around, watching, but no communication since 10, 11, 12.
Isn't it crazy when that they just don't try? As my dad did the same thing. And then sometimes you hear these inspiring stories where, like Show Me the Father, did you ever see that movie, Show Me the Father by the Kendrick brothers? It's a story of a former, I think an NFL running back, and his coach was actually his dad. He didn't even know about it. It's just a crazy story by the Kendrick brothers. And I see that and I'm like, man, then they got to have a relationship at the end of the movie. They're hanging out together. And I'm like, I never got to have that. It's kind of like a little bit of a hole in my heart. Like it never happened. Yeah. I mean, I met my dad a few times and I saw him about a year or so before he died, but he never wanted a relationship. And it's such a weird thing to have, but it's really where we have to just embrace God as our Heavenly Father. Don't you agree with that? I mean,
yeah, no, 100% for sure. You gotta walk in that. And you pray people in your life that can, sow into you.
Yeah, and you have to overcome it, and it's only through God that we're able to do that. I think you've shared that today, how you were able to overcome your situation through God as your Heavenly Father, and same here with me.
Yeah, no question.
So, now, Trey, we're going to wrap up. I just want to give you an opportunity to share where they can follow you. Anything else you want to share, like links or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much. I guess it would be Trey, Trey Burton 8, and then it's on Instagram, Twitter. I'm not on Instagram much. I'm on Twitter, often, but other than that, that's where I'm at.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on with us today. We really appreciate it, man.
Hey, brother. Talk to you soon.
To learn more about how you can get involved in fatherless family ministry, visit lifeactors.org, where you can find some free resources. You can find our books that we have. You can find even the program that we have to help you start a single mom ministry within your ministry or within your church. We can all work together to lead fatherless families to the Heavenly Father.